this week's Vaticano, Pope Francis marks the feasts of All Saints and All Souls with masses and prayers around the Vatican and Rome. Also, at the general audience, he says being part of the Church is not for our own benefit, but rather to help our brothers live their joys and sufferings. Italian parliamentarian Rocco Buttiglione tells us about his friendship with Blessed Pope John Paul II. Human trafficking and the scourge of modern-day slavery is discussed at the Vatican, and the French philosopher Remi Brague warns of the dangers of secularization in the West. All this, plus a look at the Vatican's new Instagram account and a tango-inspired mass from this year's International Sacred Music Festival coming up.
The 1st of November, the Solemnity of All Saints. Pope Francis prayed the Angelus here in a full St. Peter's Square. He reminded everyone that holiness is within reach of all men.
The
saints are not supermen, nor were they born perfect. They are like us, like every one of us. They are people who, before reaching the glory of heaven, lived a normal life, with joys and sorrows, difficulties and hopes. But what changed their lives? When they knew the love of God, they followed it with all their hearts, without making conditions or being hypocrites. They dedicated their lives in service to others. They suffered. They lived adversity without hatred, and by responding to evil with good, spreading glory and peace. This is the life of the saints, people who for love of God have given their all without condition. Being a saint is not a privilege of only a few, as if someone had received a great inheritance. All of us, in baptism, receive the instruments to be saints. Holiness is the vocation of all. Therefore, all of us are called to walk the path of holiness. And this path has a name, a face, the face of Jesus Christ.
Ha un volto, il volto di Gesù.
That afternoon, the pontiff left the Vatican for Rome's Verano Cemetery. After a warm welcome, he celebrated Mass. During the homily, he made an invitation to all people to think about the temporary nature of earthly life.
Today, All Saints' Day, before the Day of the Dead, it is necessary to think of hope, this hope that accompanies us in life. The first Christians symbolized hope with an anchor, as if life was the anchor in that seashore and all of us were holding the rope. It's a beautiful image of hope, having the heart anchored there where our predecessors, the saints, are, where Jesus and where God is. This is hope, the hope that does not disappoint. And today and tomorrow are days of hope. Hope is a little bit like the yeast that expands the soul. There are difficult moments in life, but the soul moves forward and sees what awaits us. Today is a day of hope. Our brothers and sisters are in the presence of God, and we too will be there, out of pure grace of God, if we walk the path of Jesus. And the apostle concludes, whoever has this hope in him purifies himself. Hope also purifies us. It relieves us. It makes us go fast. This purification in hope in Jesus Christ. In this pre-sunset of today, each one of us can think of the sunset of his life. Let us think, mine, yours, and so forth. Every one of us, we need a sunset, all of us. Do I see it with hope, with that joy of being received by the Lord, which is like that of a Christian? And this gives us peace. This is a day of glory, but of a serene glory, tranquility, of peace. Let us think of the sunset of so many brothers and sisters that preceded us. Let us think of our own sunset, when it will come. Let us think about our own heart, and let us ask ourselves, where is my heart anchored? And if it is not well anchored there on that shore, knowing that hope does not disappoint, because the Lord does not disappoint.
perché il Signore Gesù non delude.
At the end of Mass, Pope Francis remembered in a special way the immigrants that die every day seeking a better life.
Vorrei pregare in modo speciale.
I would like to pray in a special way for our brothers and sisters who in these days have died while they searched for freedom, for a more dignified life. We have seen the photographs, the cruelty of the desert. We have seen the sea where many have drowned. Let us pray for all of them. And let us also pray for those who have been saved and that in this moment are in shelters, piled up, waiting for documents to be able to go someplace else, more comfortable, to other shelters.
In altri centri di accoglienza.
The next day, the Feast of All Souls, Pope Francis paid a visit to the Vatican grottos just under St. Peter's Basilica. There, before the tombs of his predecessors, he prayed in private for their repose. This is the second time the Pope has done so since his election last March. Here at the Sunday Angelus, a day later, he made a further call for the faithful not to lose hope in the unconditional love of God. Hope was the constant message during the weekend of events.
Non c'è professione.
There is no profession or social condition, there is no sin or crime of any type that can erase a single one of God's children from his memory and heart. God always remembers. He never forgets none of those he has created. He is a father, always awaiting, watchful and excited to see the wish of returning home being reborn in the heart of the Son. And when he recognizes that wish, even if it is just an illusion, often almost unconsciously, he quickly goes to his side. And with his forgiveness, he allows the path of conversion to be lighter. I tell you, if you have a weight on your conscience, or if you are ashamed of things that you have done in the past, stop. Do not be afraid to think that he waits for you because he has never stopped thinking about you. He is your Father. He is God. He is Jesus who awaits you. Brothers and sisters, let us let Jesus call us by name. In the depth of our hearts, let us listen to his voice, which says, he can change us. He can transform our heart of stone to a heart of flesh. He can free us from selfishness and make from our life a gift of love.
Dalla nostra vita un dono d'amore.
Living communion in charity rather than for our own benefit was the Pope's topic during his weekly general audience on November the 6th. During a beautiful sunny day, thousands of pilgrims gathered at St. Peter's Square to listen attentively to Pope Francis' words, inspired by the Holy Spirit. He said that being part of the Church's big family means being capable of carrying each other's burdens.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas, hoy quisiera hablar
Dear brothers and sisters, today I would like to talk about the communion of saints, which grows through the participation in the Church's spiritual goods. In the sacraments, we find ourselves with Jesus, and through him we enter to form part of the holy people of God. All encounters with the Lord have a missionary character. That is why the sacraments are an invitation to communicate to others what we have seen and heard, to lead others to the salvation we have received. At the same time, charisms are special gifts and graces that the Holy Spirit distributes to build up the Church, namely to build up its holiness and its mission in the world. They enrich charity, which is above everything. Without love, charisms are in vain. With love, even the smallest of our actions have repercussions in benefiting everyone. Charity is the biggest richness of the Church. Living communion in charity means not looking for one's own interest, but rather to be capable of sharing the joys and sufferings of brothers and sisters, to be capable of carrying one another's burdens. Let us not forget, the spiritual goods that we share in the Church are in the service of communion and of the mission. And through the communion of saints, each one of us is a sign and sacrament of God's love for others and for the entire world.
Nosotros somos signo y sacramento del amor de Dios para los demás y para el mundo entero.
So this week, let's remember the point of our big family is not for our own benefit, but to help share the joys and sufferings of our brothers and sisters. Stay with us. After the break, we'll be back to hear from Dr. Henrietta Williams on the scourge of organ trafficking in Nigeria. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano.
The Dietrich von Hildebrand Legacy Project hosted its first ever Distinguished Visiting Scholar at the Franciscan University of Steubenville in October. Their guest, the Honorable Rocco Buttiglione, an Italian parliamentarian and philosopher. We caught up to him back in Rome upon his arrival.
I have given a talk on John Paul II. I have had the fortune of being his friend, so I told about the personality of this extraordinary man who is now going to be proclaimed a saint. And then I gave a lecture on Edith Stein that was much more philosophical. It was the importance of Edith Stein in the development of phenomenology and of modern philosophy in general.
John Paul II had an effect on everyone he met. Buttiglione first came across him before he became Pope.
When I was very young, I was a friend of an Italian priest, Francesco Ricci. He was a smuggler. He smuggled books to Poland and brought back from Poland manuscripts that we published in a small publishing firm that we had in Forlì and Bologna. And so I got the occasion to know the Cardinal of Krakow, who was also a great philosopher. And he wanted me to write a book. Not the Cardinal. Ricci wanted me to write a book on the philosophy of Karol Wojtyła, which I did. And he liked the book, and he was friend with Ricci, and Ricci introduced me to him, and we became friends. He was a friend of everybody. There is no great reason to say I'm proud of having been his friend, because he was really a friend of everybody. And he had friends, and his friends told about him other friends, and we all felt deeply united. I can tell you, once I was at Mass with him, with my family, and my third child, my third daughter, Maria Chiara, she was a little bit restless, because after communion, he would stay there praying for a long time, and she was only 3-4 years old, and she started making noise and moving, and I was desperate. I did not know what I had to do, and I was about to give her a small slap in the neck. Then, all of a sudden, he turned around, and he made like this. No. He gave us his benediction, and he sent us out. He was very human, and he loved children, and was very, very at home with children.
As Blessed John Paul II's canonization approaches, those who knew him and those who only knew of him are remembering him for his saintly witness. Pope Francis' fight for the weakest is continuing with a look at the modern-day slave trade. November the 2nd and the 3rd, by wish of the Pope himself, the Pontifical Academies for Sciences and Social Sciences held this conference on human trafficking in Rome. Experts from around the world confronted the reality of human trafficking and discussed possible solutions.
It's really time that something was done about it. And I think the Pope actually went to visit the victims there, and he could see the problems, and he was very much affected. So he thinks that if we get together a group of experts in different disciplines, because it's not a problem that one country or the lawyers or the doctors or the social scientists can solve. It's a problem that everyone has to come together, preferably from all the faiths, all the government institutions, and we want to find out exactly what it is, why it cannot be controlled, why is it getting worse, what are the factors that promote trafficking, we've noticed that most of the victims, well, not most, majority of victims are women and children. Of course, young men who are obviously looking for a better quality of life. But it doesn't have to involve so much tragedy. And it doesn't have to involve so much loss of life. And so it's necessary to bring together a way and a solution to this new problem of the 21st century so that we can actually solve this problem and prevent further loss of life. And we've found that in the first day of the conference, we found that the problem is much deeper than people think. People were thinking of human trafficking, prostitution. Just from today's talk, we found that there are a lot of players in the background. We don't know who they are, who are making a lot of money, so-called respectable members of the society, multinational companies, exploiting women, not just for sex, for labor. And we're getting, with the new technologies coming up now, the problem of recruiting these people by internet. You know, this is new, and it's extremely difficult to monitor recruitment of women and children on the internet. So it involves all this cyber crime.
In Nigeria, Dr. Williams combats daily against a related phenomenon that is growing at an alarming rate: the exploitation of young people who offer their organs for little money or their bodies for medical or scientific experimentation.
In Nigeria, we know they have special clinics. They call them fertility centers. Young girls 15 to 18, they are recruited for donor eggs. They're paid some paltry sum, about 50 euros. They don't know what it is, and they harvest eggs from them after hyperstimulation, which is actually a dangerous medical procedure, and export the eggs and use it for experimentation abroad. They have to come there to get it because all these procedures are actually banned in Europe and in America.
Though world numbers are impossible to know due to the underground nature of the business, the most recent International Labour Organization report on human trafficking estimates 20.9 million people are victims of forced labor globally. When former students of Joseph Ratzinger met at Castel Gandolfo this past September, their focus of study was on the secularization of the Western world. And their guest speaker, chosen by Benedict XVI himself, the French philosopher Remi Brague.
A basic problem, which is almost an obsession for Pope Benedict, and which must be an obsession for all of us, is what we call by the name of secularization. And well, in the talk, in two talks I was allowed to give before the two circles of students, former students of and present-day students on the work of Joseph Ratzinger, was the issue of the secularization. And secularization is some sort of a challenge for each of us, and I try to shed some light first on the very idea of secularization, for this is a notion into which you can cram a great deal of different and even contradictory phenomena. And then in a second paper I try to show that in the long run the movement of secularization of societies, especially in the West, simply can't hold water because it contradicts itself and leads to self-destruction, which was quite a bold thesis, I must admit.
Brague was in Rome recently for this conference on Benedict XVI's theology, as seen in his trilogy on Jesus of Nazareth. The former Pope's drive to tell people the truth about Christ is similar to Brague's own about the encroachment of anti-religious sentiment in the West.
Well, if you warn your people, and if they keep living in their sins, They will die, but this will be their problem. If you don't warn them, you'll have to give account for that. You'll be responsible. Well, this is some sort of motto for me. Whenever I'm invited to speak, which seldom happens in secular circles, well, I speak, and I even speak up, and I try to show the inner self-destructive logic of secularism. And well, if nobody invites me, well, I must keep silent. I must keep my ideas for me and try to express them by writing. You know, what I'm publishing, what I've been publishing for well, some years at present deals very much with this kind of issues.
As a philosopher, Brague won the Ratzinger Prize just last year.
Stay with us after the break, a new Vatican photo sharing initiative and a concert with an Argentinian kick. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano.
The Vatican doesn't just have a successful Twitter account. As of this fall, it has also joined Instagram, and it's already up to 13,000 followers. This man is in charge of the photo sharing account.
Instagram also is incorporated, like all the new media that is appearing. We thought it would be a great platform to communicate images that in other media we cannot do. They are images that perhaps have an important communicative weight, but are not accompanied by news. We do not follow the news like when there is an Angelus and then we place the Pope's picture with the Angelus. Maybe we are more interested in a child's face, the face of a person who is waiting, a rosary in hand. Let's say that the artistic weight is superior to the news itself of the event. We want to communicate with that, not only what is happening at that moment, but rather the feeling, the spirituality, and a little of the message of hope that Christ takes to the world, to the Church. Instagram also is incorporated, like all the new media that is appearing. We thought it would be a great platform to communicate images that in other media we cannot do. They are images that perhaps have an important communicative weight, but are not accompanied by news. We do not follow the news like when there is an Angelus and then we place the Pope's picture with the Angelus. Maybe we are more interested in a child's face, the face of a person who is waiting, a rosary in hand. Let's say that the artistic weight is superior to the news itself of the event. We want to communicate with that, not only what is happening at that moment, but rather the feeling, the spirituality, and a little of the message of hope that Christ takes to the world, to the Church.
The Vatican's Instagram account shows interesting pictures of Pope Francis with pilgrims and picturesque views of Rome. The pictures already uploaded have been taken not only by professional cameramen, but also by amateurs on cell phones.
In reality, I personally began taking pictures with the telephone, and I started to get hooked to Instagram, in the sense that it really allows you to take weird pictures in your life, that later with filters and graphics, you share them and you create a small community. So then I saw that it did have potential, that beautiful pictures could be taken with a telephone, and that it did really reach people. Let's say that with the 100,000 users it has, there's a huge potential of growth, right? And it's relatively easy to use. And that is very important for us, because we don't have so many means. We have to make use of the little that we have at a technological, human, and material level to obtain maximum diffusion. So I believe that Instagram is one of the best tools that technology offers us today.
The Pope has just reached 10 million followers on Twitter. Instagram could just be the next major papal effort on social media. The 2013 International Sacred Music Festival is underway in Rome, offering classical music standards and newer compositions alike to concert-goers throughout the two-week event. This year's premiere was here at the Church of St. Ignatius, a Jesuit church, where an Argentinian-inspired piece was played to perfection.
This concert is opening the festival in honor to the Pope Francesco, And I think they choose this piece because it's Argentine music, like the Pope Francesco, and I think they know that the Pope loves a lot the tango music. The tradition of music in Argentina is tango and folk music, music of the provincias, of the states inside the country. But in Buenos Aires, the most important music is tango. But the tango is not a religious music. So new composers are making some experience with mixing, like Piazzolla did. Mixing different techniques of music of every part of the world, blending with the tango. This is a religious piece. It's a mass. Obviously, for me, it's wonderful the possibility of singing this piece in Rome and very near Vaticano. I think this is a capital of all the religious music in the world. So for me, it's a big privilege. My music is music in Latin. It's Latin text. It's a traditional Latin text of the Mass, and the difference the orchestration is a tango orchestration, using all the material of the orchestras of Buenos Aires, the tango orchestras. This music is an experiment of mixing these two different worlds between the choral music and the tango music. This festival was created for the benefit of the papal basilicas of Roma, and for me it's a pleasure to make a contribution to this festival with this piece. And obviously a big honor for me that my music will be played in this festival.